Hello, MotoAmerica fans, and welcome to this latest edition of Off Track with Carruthers and Bice. We have a special video edition of our podcast today, and we are at Daytona International Speedway, and we're here for our return to the Daytona 200. Of course, the Daytona 200 has been running for a few years, but we haven't had it in the MotoAmerica era, so now we're here, and we're glad to be back. And Paul's here with us, so Paul's been here a billion times, and the person we have in the middle has been here a billion times too. This is Roland Sands of Roland Sands Design, but there's a lot more to Roland besides that. And we're going to go back in history a little bit and talk about a lot of the racing he's done. So let's get started, Roland. So talk about what you're doing here now and what we're doing this weekend.
We've just carved out our own little personal chunk of insanity at Daytona this year. We're racing 5 bikes, 2 baggers, 2 FTRs, and an Indian Chief. So we were racing 2 baggers in King of Baggers, and we're racing the FTRs and the Indian Chief in the Super Hooligan class. And then we're also essentially fielding the Super Hooligan class. So we're kind of the promoters of the Super Hooligan Championship. And we're doing a Super Hooligan Road Race Championship this year here. And it's insane, you know, getting these guys on Hooligan bikes. A lot of these guys used to be dirt track racers, and now they're kind of moving on to road racing. And we have a bunch of guys who have always just ridden on the street and ridden their Harleys. Like a lot of stunt riders are coming out. And these guys are now getting together and building race bikes.
So MotoAmerica does tech and all that stuff for that class.
Yeah.
I guess you produce that event within MotoAmerica.
Within MotoAmerica, we ran the championship for, I think it's our 6th year of doing the championship. So Indian Motorcycles has supported Super Hooligan racing from the beginning.
And it was mostly dirt with
mostly dirt. We did a little
right?
bit of paved stuff. We did paved ovals. We did a couple asphalt TTs. We've raced in the streets before in Tulsa. We raced in a hand-built dirt track in the middle of Texas and Austin at MotoGP. We've done a lot of really crazy stuff, but this might be the craziest.
I would think so.
Yeah, to be here on the high banks of Daytona and those bikes. And those, I thought it was run what you brung, but there's some rules involved. And you actually explained it to me on the phone the other day when I was talking to you, that there's a maximum horsepower at 125 horse, is it, for stock?
Quoted stock horsepower has to be less than 125.
Less than 125.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quoted by what, a magazine or something?
Maximum claim manufacturer horsepower.
Okay.
So that's just where.
Right. I mean, you're not dragging a dyno around.
We're not dragging a dyno around. So, I mean, it's more so where you don't get like, super bikes in the class, or like 1290 Adventures that make 160 horsepower. Right. You know, we were trying to make sure that we kept it a little bit more hooligan. Now that said, these guys are going to build the motors they want to build. There's no reason why a guy can't take a Harley Davidson Softail, a Milwaukee 8 Softail, and throw a 131 in it. The same 131 that they're running in Bagger. That's completely open. So in my mind, there's no reason why one of those air-cooled 131s couldn't run as fast as a Bagger, outside of the fact they don't have a fairing.
Right.
But
they
should weigh less, 200 pounds less, because we have a 420-pound weight limit.
Right. There's almost like
there is a weight
630,
limit.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, the bike would weigh 200 pounds less. You would think it would get around the track.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although those
I would
baggers
think
are
so.
surprising. Speaking of the baggers, obviously it's proven to be hugely successful for us and for road racing in the U.S. in general. Did you see that coming?
No. I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen. You know, I got the phone call, to race the series, and I said, no, you want to race baggers at Laguna Seca? I was like, have you ever been there? This is the craziest thing. And I ended up saying no initially. And then as momentum built up, an Indian got interested. And then we kind of asked them, I saw that they were interested. I'm like, all right, let's build one and see what happens. And then we got it, and we're like, we'll build something decent out of this thing. We got the weight down initially. Our bike, we got down to 550 pounds or something, at the Laguna the first year. But, there was no rules.
Right.
Laguna was just anything goes.
Yeah.
Which was super cool. But obviously now with Harley and Indian doing what they're doing, the rules come into play. We got to balance things out. We got a water-cooled bike and an air-cooled bike that are going to be vying for the championship. And, all 620 pounds of every bike moving around this track with 150 plus horsepower. So
I think it's going to be crazy to see him here.
It's going to be nuts.
Yeah.
Now, we we can sometimes be accused of like making rivalries that don't exist, or at least like firing them, poking a little bit. But that Harley Davidson Indian rivalry, that's like real, and it's gone back 100 years.
Yeah, I mean, all you got to do is, cruise around Daytona and you see how, what a foothold Harley Davidson has on this whole place, and how many semi trucks are out in the front of Daytona, and then, at Destination. I mean, how many Harley trucks do you think are in town right now? Semis. I stopped counting last night when I drove just out of here. I was like, Jesus.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
So Indian's the David and Harley's the Goliath in this thing. When Indian came out swinging, Indians punished Harley in flat track. So,
right.
I think Harley's got a big bone to pick. They want to come out here. They want to really show what they can do. And from what I've seen in the off season and what the effort that those guys have put into the bikes, I think they're bringing the heat for sure. I know Indian's bringing the heat as well. I know we're going to see big improvements from last year's bikes. I know our bike is improved. Both of our bikes are improved. So we're racing with Bobby Fong. So we got a bit of a ringer on one of our baggers.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up with you. We talked earlier. I mean, you're pumped to have him, and he's pumped to be on the team, and it seems like a really nice fit.
Dude, he just fit in so seamlessly, which is funny. We've talked to quite a few guys before the season started, and we kind of kept going back and forth. Then Bobby's name came up, and we're like, shit, would he do it? And this is funny because we were partying at the Hawaiian bar after Laguna Seca, and Bobby was in the Hawaiian bar, and I saw him, and I was like, dude, you want to ride one of these things? He's like, look, man, if you pay me, bro, I'll ride anything.
Right.
And I was like, we ain't paying nobody, dude. We don't pay riders, And this year, kind of takes a little bit to get a guy of his caliber on a bike. So I think if you're looking at most of the top guys, anybody who's really ready to finish on the podium at Daytona this year, they're probably getting paid a little bit of dough,
right?
To come out here and ride these things. And truthfully, they should be, because they're a lot of work. To hustle one of these things around. And I talked to Bob, and he's like, this is real road racing, bro. Like, I rode that thing, and the thing's like, it's kind of a handful, but it works. It does its job. So, I mean, it's really no different than jumping on a super bike from a mindset perspective. You're just riding a super bike it was like riding a super bike 30 years ago. Probably.
Right. And he told us on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, he said, like, it takes everything in your bag of tricks to get it to do what you need it to do. Like, you draw on that experience, and he's the only guy in the class that's won superbike races. So that you don't win those, they don't hand those out with the back of cereal boxes. It's
no, they don't. They don't. He's had to work for it before, and he knows what it's like to be at the top of his game. And he's I think he expected to be on a superbike. I think all of us kind of expected him to be on a superbike this year. So he's a bit of a ringer in the bagger class.
Well, I can tell you,
that said,
Roland, I don't know if you even know this, but there were two teams that were considering putting him on a superbike. It might not have been the whole season because of, some changes and things, and the fact that he has this job with Alpine Stars.
Yeah.
But I think he made a decision to race for you as opposed to even racing possibly on a superbike.
I think he's probably entered into a bit of a new phase of his life, and he gets to maybe have a little bit more fun racing. It's probably the way he's looking at it. I mean, if he's racing for us, I think that's probably
right.
That's probably the thing. It's not that I don't expect him to do good. I mean, I expect him to go out there and put it and lay it down. I mean, put all his effort in, and I'm 100% sure he will. But we're also out here having a good time.
Right.
Like, we're at Daytona, like my team, we're out here having fun, dude. And I didn't come back here to bust my ass. No, I say that, and I'm dragging boxes out of the trailer today, carrying toolboxes and doing what we need to do because it was such a rush getting in here today. But I'm really looking forward to see how our team gels. We got 5 bikes. We got Bobby Fong. We got Frankie Garcia riding a bagger and an FTR. We got Rennie Skagesbrook on Chief. And we've got Tyler O'Hare on our other Super Hooligan FTR 1200, Indian FTR 1200. So 5 Indians, I feel like
that's pretty cool.
I feel like we got the wagon circled.
Now, before Sean gets all fired up and starts talking about racing 2-strokes and stuff, the business part of Roland Sands Design, I always think of you. Well, I think of you first as when I used to cover all your races when you rode 250s, and which Sean will get into. But I always think of you as an artist, so to speak. But are you now Do you get to still do that part, or are you just full businessman now? And which part are you better at? Obviously, you're good at both because the company's successful. But do you like being Joe businessman, or do you like being Joe guy in the shop building cool stuff?
Dude, it's such a shift in gears, man. Like coming out here and racing, I get into my little mental zone. We just built a new shop in Long Beach, and it's kind of like this really just a project I've always wanted to do my whole life. And we finally found the spot to do it. And we built this beautiful new building, and it's very artistic and like, it's like my little cave there. Right. My life is so like, it's comfortable. And, I got the babies and the kids and the wife, and my shop's like, 4 minutes from my house. So it's actually kind of hard to get out of the shell these days and to come to Daytona and like, now I'm here. It's like, I feel like I'm home again, Yeah. Like I feel like I never left this place, which is strange. So, that said, like the art's, it's a huge part of it, man. Like I love it. I love just creating stuff and designing stuff. And, we get to design race bikes and then come out and actually race them. That's really the whole project. That's the whole deal.
When you raced bikes, had that already started for you, or is that something that came later? I mean, were you focused on the racing, did you like the arty side of it then?
I was always doing both of it, man. Yeah, I mean, I had to design to race. Mm-hmm. So I was working for my dad at the time. I was a VP of design while I was road racing. So I would come back from racing, and I'd jump right back into the work thing. And back then, it was like I was like sitting down at a computer and designing all day, like 3D design, So I got a chance to design, like for my dad, a whole catalog. The aesthetic of the company kind of came from my brain when I was racing, which was such a trippy thing. Like I brought a 250 ideation to designing Harley parts. And that just kind of all worked and did its thing at the time.
That's the thing that is fascinating to me is your transition. I mean, I look at you now, or you think back to when you were racing 250. Are you the same guy you were then that you are now? No, seriously, you don't look like the same guy. You got a beard. You might tattoos.
Be a titch smarter now.
You're not a 250 guy now. You don't look like a 250 guy. But I always thought the 250 guys were very cerebral and very kind of artistic.
Yeah.
You always cared about atmospheric pressure and all kinds of stuff.
Jetting,
like that.
Baby.
Jetting. Yeah, all that.
Freaking pulling jets out of carbs every single session. There's something that sinks in when you have to worry about seizing your bike down the front straight at Daytona.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like a little bit of careful,
Mm-hmm.
But I can't say I carried that too much into the rest of my life. It's always been kind of a send. Like, that part of it has stayed, but it's at the same time, it's like it's a blending of both the artistic and the performance and, wanting to make things successful, wanting to try and, obviously, make a little bit of dough with what we're doing. That's always a part of it, because if you want to do it the next year, you need to make sure you're successful this year. It's not just throw everything at this project and like forget about the future. Right. So I've fortunately been able to like plan for the future and like get things set up and just incrementally grow what we're doing every year. And coming back to racing is a huge pain in the ass. Truthfully, it's shaken my life, but I think it's really healthy and for my team and the crew, for us to execute this idea to come out here. So kind of psyched to come and race.
I have one more, and then I'm gonna let Sean talk. He's like biting his.
I am kind of anxious right now.
Do you have more money than Terry Vance yet, or not?
Hell no.
As he would say, if I had your money, I'd burn mine.
Jesus, dude. Terry's doing pretty damn good.
And he deserves it, right?
Damn good.
I know he's been somewhat of a mentor to you, like as he has to me.
Yeah.
Like if I have any issues, he's the first guy I think of to call. Yeah. He always gives me good advice and always gets me out of whatever I got myself into.
Me and Terry for a while were super tight. And we would go to lunch like once a week, and I would always call him and talk to him. And like through the whole business stuff that happened back in the day, the mag thing, there's a little bit of distance between us just for things that happened back then, but we still see each other and say what's up. And if I need him, I call him and help me out.
He'll be there for you.
Yeah. He's a good dude.
All right, Sean.
Well, I want to ask about a little more recently. How did you get connected with Indian? I mean, you've built so many different bikes. You've built Yamahas and Hondas and all kinds of things, race bikes to, cafe racers, but now you're kind of focused on this Indian thing. Is there some kind of you have any kind of a contractual obligation to Indian, or is it what's going on with that?
No, I mean, my Indian relationship started because I worked with Polaris. And so I initially had a Victory relationship started with Project 200 when we tried to go 200 miles an hour on a Victory. We should have called it Project 192. That's as fast as we went. Yeah. We're going to hit the number. So never call your bike the number.
No, you call it Project ? Yeah. You fill in the blanks later.
And then my dumbass, we called the next project Project 156, which was we built the Victory to climb up Pikes Peak. Well, the motherfucker only made it like 140 corners rather than 156. So I just had this I'm like, dude. We ended up finishing second on that thing the next year at Pikes. So we built basically kind of the precursor to FTR 1200. We took a Scout motor that at the time was a Victory, and that motor turned into this Project 156 kind of beast that we built. That thing made like 150 horsepower and raced at Pikes Peak, but we built the chassis and we came up with kind of the whole concept, jam the motor in the middle of our bike. Then they took that bike and which was fucking awesome, and looked at it and re-engineered it, and then they created FTR 1200.
Well, that's kind of a good feeling for you.
Yeah. I mean, they just used it was like almost just inspiration. Like, hey, we can take the Scout motor and we can build a performance bike out of Scout, you know? And so now we're back here racing FTR 1200s, road racing at Daytona.
Right. On
a bike that we essentially kind of helped develop through our inspiration of Project 156, because the Victory project or the Victory motor at the time then turned into
sorry guys,
you are fired.
It's Matthew Scholes. Sorry, man.
No worries. That turned into 156 and Victory then turned into Scout. So Octane turned into Scout turned into FTR,
Wow.
And those motors all kind of are the same platform. So
it just boggles my mind, because it's like, okay, you used to race a VTwin, but it was a two-stroke.
Yeah.
And you had to worry about the jetting and all that. But there's nothing like the sound of a two-stroke. For me, if it's not a two-stroke, I like inline fours. I love the screaming high RPM sounds. And it's certainly two-strokes that way. These things are high torque thumping machines. And you obviously like that.
I mean, I've made a living off building Harley parts. So, that part of the business for us has been, I've been doing it since I was a kid. I've been designing motorcycle wheels since I was fucking 15 years old.
Before you raced two strokes?
Before I raced, I was designing motorcycle parts, just like hand sketching motorcycle parts when I was a kid.
Okay, so this is chicken or the egg. That was your thing before you even went to the two-stroke world and did that. That's when I started to get to know you.
Build my dad's business, so I was able to kind of see how, I was in the VTwin world always. Okay. Because I used to go to Daytona and I used to go to Sturgis, and I was going to Daytona to see the races, but it was to see the races and also experience it as a VTwin consumer through with my dad, and going to the bike shows and the Rat's Hole show and going to what was the old Daytona Harley Davidson, in downtown, and I just got to experience Daytona from all eyes. But my want was really to come here and road race, because I watched Kenny ride here and I watched Eddie ride here and I watched those guys win. And I watched Scott come here and win. And, I watched the history of Daytona happen, and I watched what a big deal Daytona used to be, and all the foreign guys were coming over. And, I think my first race here was 95, and I got a chance to jump on a 250 and I finished fucking 21st, and at the time the 250 group was full.
Right. It was huge.
So it was huge, and I qualified not that great, and I finished out of the top 20, and it was the roughest weekend. Daytona just kicked my ass, and I was just like, wow. And then we came back and, I finished in the top 5 and I finished second, and I was like, but I never won a 250 race there.
Oh.
This close.
Wow.
This close. Yeah.
One of the things we need to make sure the fans understand, and most of them do, but Roland's background is Performance Machine. That's his dad's company. They manufacture, design, and manufacture wheels, or at least they did then. My first experience with Performance
He sold
Machine,
the business 15 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
My first experience with Performance Machine was the Muzzy Kawasaki that Scott Russell rode.
Oh, yeah.
Where those were Performance Machine wheels.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So here's something I've never understood. There used to be wheels that you could get for YSR 50s that they called Mitchell
Yeah,
wheels.
Mitchell wheels. Yeah.
Is that not
Mitchell
you guys?
turned into Douglas.
Okay.
And then Douglas wheels. We stopped doing spun aluminum wheels for road racing. We just stopped doing spun aluminum wheels because they were just really hard to keep consistent because they were a spun wheel. And really, we started seeing wheels where the thicknesses would get out of line and we had issues with wheels breaking back in the day. So, and we were unable to control it. So that's when we got into making forged race wheels.
Okay.
Yeah.
So those that Scott Russell, those were spun aluminum. Did they have a rim that was separate from the inside and you welded them together, or were they one piece?
2 spun wheel halves. It came in, boom, like this, and then out to a hub that you would weld. So had a center hub that you weld in, and then you would put hub carriers on it.
Okay. Yeah. And were they truly pretty lightweight wheels at the time?
They were
revolutionary.
Light. They were light.
It's funny that those guys were the only ones that really had those for a while. And
obviously
you had them on your TZ when you raced them.
I ran them on my TZ, and then we developed a cast magnesium wheel. I actually designed the cast magnesium wheel. And then we had a full cast magnesium wheel program, but it was so hard to get consistent forgings out of our casting house that we put like a big chunk of dough into trying to do it, and it just didn't work. I mean, we sold wheels. Muzzy actually ran our wheels, and we did a couple different teams overseas. I ran all our wheels. I still have all the mag wheels on my race bikes.
That's amazing.
It's just like this time capsule. And I remember the day my dad walks in, he's like, we got like a bunch of forgings and we chucked them up. And what back then we used to X-ray the forgings when we would get them. So we'd lathe turn the forgings and we'd X-ray them before we machined them because we didn't want to machine and spend all this money on a junk wheel. So we'd turn them. We'd X-ray them, and it was like fucking 80% of the wheels were trash.
Really?
Yeah. They just had porosity in them, and if they had porosity, they'd break. And so we had these wheels and whatever. I mean, I don't know how deep we get in this stuff, but it was like the way that you would forge wheels. You'd have these these heat sinks in the forging, so when you poured the material in, it would cool at a certain rate as you filled the forging up and or the casting, and it wasn't right.
Oh.
And even my dad walks in, he's like, fucking 80% of these things are junk. He's like, we're done with mag wheels. I'm just like, oh, dude, I put like 2.5 years into the project.
So if you did forging with aluminum, you guys could have done pistons.
Well, yeah, I mean, now all the pistons are forged, but yeah, sure, we could have made anything, but we were essentially a motorcycle wheel and brake company.
And brakes, and you used to use those brake calipers that had the engraved PM on when you raced. Yeah. And the thing is about Performance Machine, there's a couple things with it. Why did you run the number 10? Is that the number you were given? Did you pick it?
I was given that number.
Okay.
And then I really liked it, so
yeah,
I was like, I'm gonna keep this number.
Okay. Yeah. Why that color blue, and what did you call that blue?
I mean, that's true blue metallic.
It's metallic, right? Yeah,
it was metallic. Like, had a little bit of metallic in it. We one year we had chrome blue. Okay. So we did all our bikes and dipped them in blue chrome, and that was pretty cool year when we did that. Why
blue? What was the blue?
That was the color. That was PM's color. Was blue.
Okay.
So it was like kind of like the color of your shirt, maybe a little darker than that. But yeah, I mean, all my bikes were always blue. And blue and gold. Yes. So everything was blue and gold or blue and bronze, and I mean, I still like run gold wheels on everything I can. Like a little flash. And
that back then, the Performance Machine logo, did you design that?
No. A friend of my dad's designed that logo. His name's Dave Hetland. Rest in peace, Dave. But he was a good friend of my dad's, and he designed that logo back in the day. Yeah.
So that company, Performance Machine, you sold it. It's gone. Does it exist as a company still?
It does.
Okay. And do they still make motorcycle wheels?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can still buy them, but it's not the Sands.
No, we've been out of it for a long time. But I still do work with them on certain projects when I can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you have Roland Sands. You have your own designs of wheels that you create now.
Yeah, of course.
And does any of that seem like it's a legacy of what you did in Performance Machine? Obviously, you learned it back then. So
a lot of the stuff we made through PM still. So now we have a whole new collection of parts that's made here in the U.S., not made at PM. But there's just, things go different ways. Things change. The companies move away from each other. But we still work together in certain aspects. But yeah, we're pretty much free agents 100% now.
One of the things I always think about is in sports or motorsports, it's when you were born and who were your contemporaries during that time period. And you fortunately, or perhaps unfortunately, raced during a time period and you had a lot of success, but you raced against Rich Oliver, who has, 88 wins or something like that.
Yeah.
And you had a lot of success, but was he your toughest rival?
Certainly.
Okay.
On a 250, yeah, of course.
On a 250, yes.
Yeah. I mean, Chuck was always fast. Chuck Sorensen
Yes.
was fast. At the time, Takahito Mori was really quick.
Yeah.
He's the one who beat me here at Daytona in 90. So I won the championship in 98. I think I got second here.
Bastard.
Dude, it was just like a little...
Moto Liberty, right? Yeah.
Moto Liberty, yeah. Takahito Mori.
Yeah, I remember him.
So you were after Kaczynski.
I was after Kaczynski. I was after Kenny Jr. and Edwards by race against Roberts, and yeah.
Did they get rid of AMA 250 before you were done, or were you done beforehand?
I was done beforehand.
Okay, not much before though, was it?
No, I retired in 2002 from pro road racing.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't my last road race, but it was my last AMA road race. I raced over in Europe for a little bit, but I ended up going in the 2001 season. 2001, I raced over in England, so I didn't race here at all in 2001.
On what?
RS 250.
Oh, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I didn't know that you ever rode anything other than a Yamaha.
Yeah, no, I raced a TSR Honda, factory A kit Honda in British Super Cup.
Oh,
Yeah.
Did you ever race anything other than Yamaha and AMA?
I raced a Honda CBR 600.
Oh, okay, in 600.
Yeah.
Okay, but that was not a Yamaha YZF 600 or anything. You raced you went.
I tried to get the YZF 600, but we couldn't because it made way more sense for me to ride the R6 because it was just way more like a 250.
Sure.
And the 600 to me, that was my roughest year because I was riding a TZ 250 and then a 600.
Oh, okay.
And I think at the time we couldn't reverse the shifter, so one of the bikes had standard shift and my 250 had race shift, and I had to like shift gears. That's why I fucking crashed here. I crashed. Let's see. I high-sided my 250 in the International Horseshoe on the first lap of the heat race in 2000.
Smart.
No, in 99.
It's a good time to crash.
Yeah. Yeah. I was leading, dude. I was leading the heat race. I was like 2 seconds faster than everybody. I was just because I came back from Europe. No, 2001. 2001. I came back from Europe. My game was on point. I was fast. Like I just coming off of racing in England. You know how it is in England. In British Super Cup, you're racing against 20 guys.
Right.
Instead of here, we were racing against 3 guys.
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 guys, just depending. So over there, it was like, I mean, fuck, one of the races I qualified 18th, over there. I got 3rd. But it was cutthroat over there. And you had to be on it every single session. Not that we weren't here, but it was just a lot of people to compete with constantly. I felt really good when I came back, and then it crashed. And then crashed here on my 250 in the International Horseshoe, rung my bell, got up, jumped immediately on the 600 for the 600 race.
Wow.
And went out and raced the 600. I think the 600 race was on Saturday. And I kind of had rung my bell, and I got out there, and I was in the lead group behind Pascal Picat. Pascal Picat? Is that how you say his name?
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah,
you
Pascal Picat.
Yep.
I was up into like freaking 6th place, dude. And I backshifted going into the second horseshoe and high side and broke my wrist.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
So there's somebody that's racing this weekend that's actually on an Indian, and it's Jeremy McWilliams. Did you race against him in England, or did you race here in Daytona against him?
I did race. I barely raced against him. I raced with him.
Well, you were in the,
Yeah. I was racing an XR 1200 over there. And I only did one race. I did a one-off race, so I did race against him. I finished 5th.
Okay.
He was a little clip ahead of me.
He was probably at the time that Wars Harley Davidson was.
He was racing for Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was ripping. He won that. I raced him at Brands Hatch, and he won that race.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he raced in our XR 1200. He was at Indy one year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So
He's
he
a
knows
badass.
VTwin stuff. Yeah.
He's a badass. Yeah.
And he's still a badass, don't you think?
I don't expect him not to do well this weekend. That bike, he's on a great bike. The SNS guys know what they're doing. He has experience riding crazy motorcycles. So that's what it takes. You jump on a bagger or you jump on a Hooligan bike, you kind of got to be willing to ride around the problems.
Right.
Because no matter what, it ain't a super bike. You're going to have issues and you're going to have to figure out how to make the bike do what you want it to do. It's, you know, it's like when Wayne was riding that 500,
Right.
you know, you figure it out.
Well, speaking of old school and two strokes and 250s, I want to ask Roland a question about Daytona that I don't know the answer to, but when you're on a TZ 250 or a 250 AMA 250 GP bike, where do you do the plug chop in this whole track?
NASCAR 4.
And then what do? You bring it, you let it
Coast
roll
in.
in and then coast it in and let it go.
If you were dialed and your pits were close enough to pit out or pit in, you could roll to your pits. That was the goal.
Do you miss doing plug chops at all? That was a cool thing for me. I always used to love to. I used to like to be in the infield when you guys came in through the gates, and you'd go by, and I could see bikes close up.
Yeah, I mean, we would, like it was kind of a pain in the ass because you do a plug chop, and sometimes you sit out there because sometimes it'd be on a back straight. It was the only place you could really do it. You can imagine those days, like you had to go and freaking run your bike on the 6th gear all the way and chop the gas and pull in the clutch and hit the kill switch, and then you just sit on the side of the track until
someone gets
you up. And that was the only way to make sure your bike ran good.
Do you love fuel injection?
I like the fact that we don't have to work on the motors. I'm in a 250. You're pulling. We're putting pistons in every Saturday night.
Right.
So there's that. And crank will go 1,000 miles. On these things, I mean, I don't know about the baggers yet. We're going to see how reliable they are this race, but the FTRs that go all season.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So speaking of the FTR, we did some social media posts of the delivery on your bike, and there was a fan or two that commented, and they thought there was some things on your King of the Baggers bike that is FTR 1200. Anything? Tail section?
No.
Okay.
A front fender and fork.
Okay.
That's FTR. Yeah.
Okay. Then somebody was like, there's some FTR 1200 parts on that. And I couldn't figure out what they were talking about.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And you have a different kind of, is that tail section? That's not stock, is it?
No, it's a tail that we developed for the bikes.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah, we shaped that tail.
Okay. Yeah. I was like, maybe that's the part of it or something. So, all right.
We're good. We're good.
We're good. I got more, but
Thanks for stepping in today.
No worries, man. No worries. I'm just a stand-in for Jeremy McWilliams today. So you know how it is.
Well,
he's like, hey man, we couldn't get this guy to come, but figured we'd talk to you.
Well, you were the first backup choice.
I'll take it.
At least on the podium.
But no, I mean, it is amazing though. You think about those days when you raced, and I mean, we knew about Performance Machine, and then in my wildest dreams, I didn't know that it would be Roland Sands Design, and you would be who you are today, and what you're doing for the sport. In getting a whole race series started, being involved in King of the Baggers, and all the work you're doing. I didn't have a chance to even talk to you about one of my favorite things you did, and it was those single cylinder 450s.
Oh yeah.
I thought were you gonna try to have a race series with us?
Oh, here we go.
That's it. Yeah, I mean, we wanted to 100%.
There's one in our office.
Do you have a 450 super single? No shit. Which one?
MotoAmerica's office.
Which one?
I don't know. It's all white. It must be Wayne's or something.
Maybe.
Or Richard. I don't know.
I mean, we wanted to have that series be, a feeder series.
Right.
Well, that's what kind of Wayne was going to use when they were thinking about starting this whole thing. It turned into this, but originally it was supposed to be those.
Yeah. I mean, we just didn't get the backup. And granted, the OEMs gave us the bikes to build, but we just didn't get any support because they were worried about their motors. At the time, remember, everyone was blowing up their motocross motors.
Yes.
And then everyone was bitching, complaining because they're like, we're going from 250s to 4-strokes. Now it costs us so much more money to ride these bikes when we used to just put pistons in.
Right.
So it's, I mean, at the time, maybe the timing just wasn't correct. But then, you have KTM that comes out with their little 400 and then all of a sudden it is happening. If anything, and we did build a KTM too. So it just acted as inspiration. We're kind of that kind of company where we get the opportunity to get ahead of the curve when it comes to developing new stuff. And we've been at the front of that curve for a long time. Knowing or just being involved in two wheels for so long, we kind of spot the trends before they come. And then we get opportunities to pitch the ideas and they know that we can execute those ideas and not just like say build a bike, but even like talk to you guys and say, hey, why don't we have a race series? You know, and
Right.
like it's the execution all the way from the ideation and knowing that there's a culture around the idea and then getting them placed in somewhere where that culture maybe normally wouldn't, wouldn't be expected to show their shit. So here they get to do that. And that's what we're doing with Super Hooligan Racing. We're going to see guys on freaking Harley Softails, that were riding wheelies 2 years ago on these bikes that are fully kitted to road race now. And I mean, that's the kind of stuff that excites me.
Right. It's cool.
Like, I want to see something different on the racetrack. And that's the fuel that has made the bagger situation go, because it is a show out there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what road racing, kind of in the end, it's a show. I mean, it
Right.
is. And the superbike guys, they rip. These guys are riding their balls out for sure. But, see something a little different.
It's weird. For almost since the beginning of time for you, it's performance machine. It was performance. Then you got involved in racing. Now you're still about racing. So racing is still at the heart of what you do, as well as obviously art and design. But is it proving your product on a track in a competitive environment? Is that what it is?
Certainly that's inspiration for it. Yeah.
Gets him to the track where he wants to be.
Yeah, we get to the track where we want to be, and we can prove out some of the product stuff that we're working on. It takes a lot of different companies and a lot of different people to get these bikes on the racetrack and do it right. It's one thing to throw a stock bike with a pipe on the track, which works. I mean, you could throw slicks and you could throw a different exhaust on FTR and some suspension and come out here and race, but our thought process is a little more, let's make them as good as we can and really get into the meat and potatoes of the bike. So yeah.
Great stuff.
All right.
Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. And thank you, Roland, for being on with us. It's high time we had you on. You were a great guest, and we could keep going. But Paul, that was a good one. I think we'll get some good
Thank
people on.
Right on, guys.
We'll
Thank
see
you.
you guys next time.